Today we're adding another addition to the series on the 1999 Burger King Big Kids Meal Pokemon promotional toy thing. This time we're on Keychains. And we answer the question on everyone's mind, do they be chained to keys? Yep, they sure can be. So now that we have that out of the way, let's actually look at some of the keychains. Honestly, there's not a whole lot to talk about here since they don't do anything in addition to the thing that they already are. Like with the squirters, they squirted water. With the rev-ups, they could shoot across the floor. For the keychains, we can really just evaluate them based on the molds of the Pokemon themselves. The Electabuzz looks pretty good. The Dragonite's probably my least favorite. Because of the big seam it has going down its stomach and how small they made the horn on its head, just because the antenna don't stick up, it kind of just makes this look way more like Barney than Dragonite. And so that one doesn't actually scale up pretty well with the other ones, especially this Cubone that looks massive next to the Dragonite. We can see the Burger King stamp there on its hip, but just a fun little game that you can play with these keychains is finding the Burger King stamp wherever it's hidden on there. The Sandslash, I actually like, especially the glossiness that you get on its spines there. It's got a fun little pose. Sandslash doesn't get a whole lot of love now, and it definitely didn't back in the day. Same thing with Hitmonlee. I feel like Hitmonlee is one of the least recognized Gen 1 Pokemon, and there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it, especially if you go by the manga version where its legs are actually just super stretchy springs that can extend. I don't know that they've ever done that within the games or the anime. Missed opportunity, really. I'm a big fan of this Nidorino. Without having to do too much, I think it perfectly just captures the essence of this Pokemon. I've always loved the design of the Nido lines. The color scheme and the paint job are great. I think it makes a great keychain. Same thing for this Nidoking over here. I just like how the purple pops, how it's a little bit of a duller color, but they still get the important details in there, like the spikes on the back, the indentations on its tail, how segmented Nidoking is between all of its different body parts. Unlike with Dragonite, they actually got the horn on top of the head correct on this one. I think the designs of the Nidorino, the Nidoking, and the Nidoqueen all lend themselves really well to keychains because you're wanting Pokemon that are kind of compact and squat, so that you don't have to like exaggerate or squish any details. They really just look the same, but scaled down. So ones that are more simplistic in design, like that Hitmonlee, lend themselves really well to it. Kangaskhan actually surprises me a bit because it does have some more details, some more components, like the bumps on its skin, the horns or the ears that stick out on the sides, and then the little Kanga in its pouch. But this is another Pokemon that you can kind of scale it down and make it a little chunkier and more squat, and it still looks pretty good. You've probably also already noticed how nice this Vileplume looks too, because from the top, you just have a straight up keychain of a corpse flower. If you don't know what Vileplume is based on, you should go look up a corpse flower because they are amazing plants, but upon inspection, you can pick it up. You can see, oh yeah, there's a happy little flower guy under here too. Vileplume is another one that the flower looks great, and the rest of the Pokemon is such a simple design that you don't even have to do all that much work. Same thing with Muck. Muck already looks like a piece of melted plastic, and for people that don't know what Muck is, they're probably going to look at your keychain and think that it's just like a melted action figure or something, but Muck is another Pokemon that I love. I think that the keychain looks great. The layers of sludge rolling over the top, and just the fact that it's got this open mouth that you can stick your finger back in there. And I've said this in every Burger King video so far, but it's crazy that they put this amount of quality into a toy that was free with a kid's meal. And as a comparison, I wanted to talk about some more Pokemon keychains from around this same period of time. Like I said earlier, there's not a whole lot of discussion to be had about the Burger King keychains, but these are another set of keychains that I loved as a kid, and I still don't have a full set. I've been working on it, but I did want to talk about them here. You can see that there's a Pokemon inside of each of these Pokeballs that is the actual keychain, and it's kind of secured in there by this peg. This one is Meowth. It's of a decent quality. It's not as good as the Burger King keychains. You know, the Pokemon does have to fit snugly inside of a plastic Pokeball, so dimensionally you are limited design-wise. And so looking at this Meowth, it's a decent paint job. It's a decent sculpt. This huge hole in the bottom of it is a little, just look at it. Just look at it. All of these are going to have that because that's how they get secured into the Pokeball and actually stay in place, so they're not rattling around in there. If they were rattly, these Pokeballs would 100% get knocked open and then you would just lose the Pokeball off of there. They have a fun weight to them, so they were great for just hanging off of a backpack or, you know, clipping 15 of these things onto the same backpack. Because a lot of the Burger King toys also came in plastic Pokeballs, even though they got recalled, so they are comparable products. I also really like this Charmeleon just because of how bright red it is. I feel like you don't get to see Charmeleon stuff all that often just because Charizard and Charmander are more popular. But the design also harkens back to those Tommy figures that were based more on the original Pokemon designs rather than how they were interpreted for the anime. And I don't know for sure, but my guess would be that a lot of the sculpts and molds for these smaller Pokeball keychain figures was actually taken from those Tommy Japanese figures. Next one up is Snorlax. Another one that's just fun to have chilling in a Pokeball. That's another thing I really like about these, is it reminds me of the Pokemon manga, where Pokemon are just shrunk down to fit in Pokeballs. You can actually pick up your Pokeball and look inside and see them chilling in there. Unlike in the anime where they're all just converted into energy and then the energy goes into this weird mirror ball. If you do lose the Pokeball portion, these keychains don't hold up as well as just Pokemon keychains, just because the angle at which they hang is kind of weird on some of them. But there were actually a ton of these made, and so a lot of fan favorite Pokemon that didn't get products otherwise did get some of these Pokeball keychains. Even though you would think that Charizard doesn't lend itself well to a scaled down model, there is a pretty decent Charizard one of these. Of course, it's the most expensive one to get a hold of. Pikachu, Blastoise also got some, but also Poliwhirl, the Pokemon that they thought was a fan favorite for so long because it was featured in the manga, but the West didn't get the manga, so we didn't know why Poliwhirl was supposed to be popular, but it was featured a lot in these early products, and I'm glad it was because I like Poliwhirl. I like the idea of a tadpole that is fresh out of the water, it's lost its tail, and instead it grew some boxing gloves and it's ready to throw down. Of course, I also just like the tadpole reference and seeing all of its innards, and it translates over into a Pokemon as just a big hypnotic spiral. I've just always thought that was an amazing design choice. So let's pop open another Pokeball here, and this one's gonna have Ivysaur in it. This is another one. I picked this one up just because I like the color scheme so much. I think it does such a great job in contrasting those blues and greens with the big pop of pink on the back with the flower, and you don't get to see the fuchsia-eyed Ivysaur very often. This is one where they really used the maximum size on these dimensions to actually fit the Pokemon inside the Pokeball. This is one that feels like it barely fits onto that little pedestal in there to hold it in place, but it's one that's definitely going to stay in place because it barely fits in there, and you kind of have to move the keychain around it, unlike with some of the others where it just naturally falls to the side. You've probably noticed back here in this lineup, there's one that's a little bit different, and it does feel like an exact reference to the Pokemon manga where you can look inside of the Pokeball and see the miniaturized version in there. I wish that all of them were transparent so you could get this same effect, but this one, we have the transparent purple, and we pop it open, and there's a transparent purple Gengar inside. This one has been worn down a little bit. You can tell its smile has faded or chipped off over time. I actually thought about repainting this one, but I kind of like having the absent smile on there. One of the most appealing parts of Gengar, and why I think it's still a fan favorite, is because the design is so simple, but it works so well for what Gengar is supposed to be, which is just this chunky, mischievous shadow. And the paint job here even gives you those little highlights on the tips of its claws and on the tips of the ears and the spines on its back. This is a perfect example of how all of these really just reference the original Ken Sugimori designs rather than any of the anime or anything that happened afterwards that really changed those designs and moved away from that watercolor airbrush kind of effect. And for the final part of this keychain video, I did want to focus on a product that does have some sentimental value to me that really kicks in the nostalgia. But before we get to the actual product, let's flash back to 4th grade Shuckle, where I had this other kid in my class. We were kind of like rivals. We would compete over grades, and I thought that this kid hated me because anytime I got a higher grade than him, he would like flip out. He would go cry in the bathroom. Didn't have a lot of friends. Like it was one of those kind of like stranger kids that everyone tried to be friends with, but it just didn't work out. So yeah, long story short, I thought this kid hated me. And for Christmas or around holiday season in the 4th grade, we all did Secret Santa. And so, you know, If you're not familiar with Secret Santa, you draw names out of a hat, you get a random person from the pool, you get them a gift. No one knows who their gift is coming from until the day that it's revealed and everybody gets their gift. So, just before holiday break, we do our Secret Santa party, and I find out that this kid got my name. And I see, you know, to Logan from, you know, the kid's name. And I was just thinking like, oh, what is this gonna be? This is gonna suck. And what I got instead was the most thoughtful gift I could imagine, which was this 2-pack of Mew and Mewtwo in the Pokeball keychains. Not this exact one. I was in the 4th grade. I definitely opened that one, but when I had the opportunity to go back and buy a sealed version of this, I did. I'll put it up here just so you guys can see a little better. But you can also see the sticker that says a KB Toys exclusive. You also have to remember that I grew up in rural Kentucky. We were a 2.5-hour drive away from any kinds of Toys R Us or KB Toys or a shopping mall, anything like that. And so the fact that I got this product that I didn't even know existed just because I didn't have the opportunity to actually see it on toy shelves anywhere or even in magazines actually meant a lot. And it changed my perspective on who this kid was and how he viewed me. This kid actually had to transfer schools not long after that, so wherever you're at out there in the world, I hope things are going great, and thanks for getting me a really cool toy in the 4th grade. And that's another round of the Burger King Big Kids Meal toys down. There is another section on the light-ups. I don't actually feel like those 5 are worth doing a video on just because it's the same. It's a plastic figure that you stick on a stand and it lights up. Plus, I have tried replacing the batteries in these things and I still can't get them to light up properly, so I wouldn't have a whole lot to show off. So I guess that wraps up the Burger King series of videos, because we're not talking about the beanbags. We don't talk about the beanbags. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.